Hey there, what's going on internet? My name is BlackLightAttack and today we are playing some Man vs. Machine as the Scout. Now, Scout's not normally my first choice to play during MvM. If anything, I'd probably rather go Soldier because it's fun, but it's also really easy. Whatever, I don't mind playing Scout though. I actually play a pretty mean Scout. For anybody who doesn't know, in Man vs. Machine, Scout's main objective is to grab money. He actually gets healed and an unlimited overheal based just on grabbing money, and that's exclusive to the class. And also exclusive to the class is he has a magnetizing effect on money, so you don't actually even have to touch piles of cash in order to grab it. You just need to kind of be in the same area. But anyway, this was a pretty good group of guys I ran into, and actually one of them is a fan. Joe the Spy was in there, and he was tearing things up. So, hey, what's going on, Joe? I bet you didn't know I was recording this. And yes, that was really me. He asked me if I was really BlackLightAttack. That actually happens to me surprisingly a lot, considering I'm not really the biggest channel out there. I actually get recognized a lot. It's pretty awesome, I have to say. I always like it when that happens. But anyway, so I decided to record. I was just playing MvM, you know, whatever. I had a couple tickets in my inventory, and I figured might as well just, you know, see if maybe I can luck out and get a gold bot killer or something. And while we're at it, why not? What the hell? Let's just record it, see what we can get. And then ended up being pretty good. You know, I got all the money, and that's always nice. And it's pretty long. Man vs. Machine takes a while. It takes a while to complete one campaign. So even though I've cut out all of the, like, in between each round, it still would have been, like, I don't know, 35 minutes long. So I decided to cut it up into 2 commentaries. And then I was sitting there thinking, well, crap, now I need to come up with a commentary topic that can actually last me across 2 commentaries. Now, I could talk forever about anything, but the question is, what is a topic that's actually appropriate to talk that long about? And so I've been wanting to do a commentary for a little while about how TF2 is my favorite game, this reason and that reason, and there's just so many reasons why TF2 is just, in my mind, overall, like, you know, just looking at it as a creative outlet for some people and as a hardcore competitive game for others and such a great casual game that's free for others. It's just so multifaceted, there's so much for everybody that I wanted to go over like a list of reasons why it's so cool, but then I was thinking, you know, that's kind of lame. Why spend all that time just filleting a game that I clearly am biased towards liking? And, you know, if you're watching my videos, chances are you like TF2 anyway. It's not like I need to convince you that it's a great game. So that got me thinking, well, if this is my favorite game now, I mean, I have other favorite games. This is my favorite game that I play currently. You guys know that my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VII, but this is my favorite game that I play currently. And it probably will be for a good long while. But then that got me thinking, like, man, I've had a whole long history of favorite games. And that got me thinking, why don't I do my personal history as a gamer? I've been playing games since I could hold a controller, since even, you know, probably before I could really accomplish anything in a video game. And a lot of you have as well, I'm very sure. You know, maybe some of us got into video games later in life, but many of us are, you know, practically career gamers since a very, very young age. And I think we all have a story to tell as to what got us into games, what games we grew up with, what games our friends had that, you know, that were an influence on us. And I just thought it would be fun. And, you know, towards the end, like I said, this will be a 2-part commentary. So towards the end of each part of each commentary, I'll have a different question to ask you guys that you guys can chime in and give me and everybody else your take on this, your little slice of life, your perspective. I just think it would be fun. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. When I was, I mean, we're talking single digits, like younger than 4. My parents tell me that, I mean, obviously this is me being so young that I have no clear memories myself. My parents tell me that when I was really, really young, something about video games just absolutely enraptured me. I was enamored with video games, and every time somebody in the room was playing a video game, I was so absorbed in the little virtual world that was being displayed on screen. So obviously, you know, as soon as I was old enough to talk, I was asking my parents, you know, for a video game, because I have older cousins, and I do have an older sister, but she was never much of a gamer. So, you know, she loves Tetris, but other than that, she wasn't much of a gamer. So I didn't have an older sibling that I looked up to in my video game career, if you want to call it that. But I did have older cousins who had video games. I had, you know, friends who had older siblings and stuff like that. And but whenever there was a video game in the room, man, that was the place to be. So my parents actually debated heavily between themselves and each other whether or not they should actually get me a video game console as a present for Christmas or my birthday or whatever, because they were worried that they would be setting me down a dark path that could never be reversed, and god damn it were they right. So when I was 4, they finally gave in, and I guess I must have been 4.5, yeah, because it was a Christmas present. I do remember my Christmas present when I was 4.5 years old, because my birthday's in the summer, was a Sega Genesis, and we got the bundle that came with Sonic and Knuckles and 1 controller, and it was all downhill from there. So I guess now that I think about it, coming from my brother's perspective, he's literally had a video game in the house for like his entire conscious life, because he would have been about 1.5 when we would have got it. Yeah, he would have been 1.5. He's also a summer birthday when we had the Sega Genesis. So getting sidetracked here. So we grew up with a Sega Genesis, and we actually didn't have a whole lot of games. I remember my parents were very big on saving money by renting games, because it was so much cheaper having a Blockbuster subscription. You know, back when Blockbuster was actually a thing. We didn't have Netflix or GameFly or anything like that. So we would rent games a lot, and the games that we did own were few and far between and to be treasured. So I was actually trying to remember some of the games that I did have, and I did mention Sonic and Knuckles. I think I had Sonic 1, but not Sonic 2 or 3, which of course were the only 2 you could link up to Sonic and Knuckles. I believe I had the Sega 6-pack, which I got from my friend, which is what Sonic 1 was on. And I believe that also had Vector Man. It either had Vector Man 1 or 2, along with Golden Axe, which was like the bomb. We had a game called Mega Turrican, which was sort of like a cross between, I don't know, Contra and Mega Man, and like maybe a little bit of R-Type or Gradius or whatever. I don't know, it was a pretty cool game anyway. I actually recently just remembered that game even existed and picked it up on an emulator. It didn't really hold up. The first level, just look up the first level music of Mega Turrican. That music is so good. I like fucking nostalgia bombed when I heard that for the first time, and it's so good. The rest of the music is actually just okay, but for some reason the first level has just some really fantastic music. I remember my older cousin gave me NHL 96, which I liked playing, because even though I had no interest in actually playing hockey, I really liked to try to start fights in that game. And we had Sonic Spinball, which was a total pile of shit. I don't know, we had a couple others, but generally speaking, most of our experience came from either borrowing games from friends or renting them from Blockbuster. And despite being a Sega Genesis kid growing up, to this day I never really feel a whole lot of attachment to the console. When I was going over a cousin's house or going over a friend's house who had a Super Nintendo, I always preferred the Super Nintendo games to Sega Genesis. And while I, at the time and for a long time afterwards, just sort of chalked that up to the fact that I don't have it, therefore it must be more fun, because it's like a grass is always greener kind of thing, and because it was so rare and more of a treat, then, you know, I figured that the kids who had Super Nintendo probably considered Sega Genesis games like the same way. Like, yeah, Mario's okay, but I played Mario a billion times. I'd much rather have Sonic. I wish I had Sonic. But that wasn't really true. That's actually not the case at all. As I get older, I'm finding that more and more people are considering the Super Nintendo to just be like objectively the better system, and going back and playing these games on emulators and stuff, I kind of agree, because I mean we had some good stuff, don't get me wrong. Sega Genesis had some really great games, like, you know, Sonic and like Vector Man, some really unique and really cool stuff, but we didn't have Mario, we didn't have Metroid, we didn't have Zelda, we didn't have, you know, all those classic Nintendo first party, and there were also a lot of really great third party titles on the Super Nintendo that we were lacking. Not to mention the controller for the Sega Genesis was just absolutely retarded. Even when you got the 6-button controller, it just didn't feel as good. Super Nintendo still to this day is probably my favorite controller during its time. If you were to rate all controllers objectively, obviously I think you'd have to pick something with an analog stick as the top. But if you're rating all the controllers within their respective time frames, I honestly think Super Nintendo had the best feel. So I spent my whole childhood pretty much pestering my parents for a Super Nintendo, or at least more games for the Sega Genesis, and of course I was always snubbed. My parents were very firm believers in my performance in school, me and my brother's performance in school, being a motivating factor for getting presents. It's not like we didn't have the money to buy more systems, it was more that my parents felt that we didn't need it and we needed to earn it. And I'm really grateful that that was their outlook, because working at GameStop in a pretty well-to-do area, I can tell you that kids who just get everything they ask for are total shitheads and grow up to be total shitheads. That being said, my grades in school haven't always been the best. Even though I've always done well on test grades and, you know, writing assignments and stuff like that, I very rarely ever did homework. I just have really terrible, even to this day, really terrible discipline when it comes to putting my nose to the grindstone and doing something I don't want to do. I was also pretty attention deficit, so my participation grades were not through the roof. But so I guess sometime around the age of 9 or so, I somehow convinced my parents, in the middle of the school year no less, so not my birthday nor Christmas, to go in and upgrade our video game system. And the PlayStation 1 hadn't been out for too long, and that was what we were eyeing. Again, I don't know what our issue against Nintendo was. Maybe we figured, I know my cousins were Nintendo kids growing up with Super Nintendo and N64 and whatnot. So maybe it was just because my parents figured we visit our cousins so much and they have Nintendo systems, we should get what they don't, so we're, you know, getting the whole experience. But for whatever reason, we went to Funko Land and finally bought a PlayStation 1. I do remember, actually, what few memories I have in life. I do remember that in that instance, I had been doing exceptionally well in school and actually getting busy and doing my homework, but that was all about to change because we were about to get a PlayStation 1. So Mama Blah drove 9-year-old Blah over to Funko Land, a store that no longer exists, and we picked up, I believe, a used PlayStation 1, and I was sitting there perusing the aisles and asking the guy at the counter what was good, what he could recommend, and the first thing he said was, well, what do you like? And I told him, of course, Sonic and that sort of stuff. So he recommended Crash Bandicoot, and that ended up being, you know, a perfect fit once I got home. But I didn't want to leave with just one game in my hands. You know, I wanted to have at least two. I think I started my system's life on the Genesis with 2 games as well, so, you know, it seemed about right to start off with 2 and then build our way from there. So the guy working the register, I still remember he seemed kind of reluctant, probably because of how old I was, but nevertheless he recommended this new game that had just come from Japan called Final Fantasy VII, and it had maybe come out a month or a couple weeks before that. I do remember it was really close to the launch of the game, which was very lucky timing for me because, according to him, this was like the best game ever. It was getting rave reviews from every magazine, and everybody that he talked to that he had sold it to just absolutely loved it. There wasn't a single person in the world that had anything bad to say about this game. So naturally, I was hyped as fuck. I was ready to listen to anything any minimum wage 16-year-old was going to tell me, and I could not wait to get this game home. So it was the first thing I popped into my PlayStation 1 when I got it, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I got up, I was sitting there like spamming the circle button all the way through the opening cinematic, and the train part looked kind of cool, but why do the characters look all boxy and dumb? And how come when I get into a battle screen, I have to sit there and wait for a bar to fill up so that I could select attack from a menu and then select a guide to attack rather than just mashing the square button or something? And I just was really unimpressed with it, so I threw it down and I put in Crash Bandicoot, and I was like, alright, this I get. I'm running on platforms, things are getting actiony and crazy and whatnot. I still remember I brought my friend, my best friend at the time, over to play my new system before I had even hooked it up. I should say my dad hooked it up because I didn't know nothing about that. But and we put in Final Fantasy VII. It was like, dude, the guy at the counter said that this is like the greatest game ever. The guy at the store like was so all about this game. We got to play this, and we played it. And we were like, this is kind of boring. So we put it away, and we played Crash Bandicoot all night. And we really loved Crash Bandicoot. I remember my dad really liked Crash Bandicoot because of like the comedic ways he dies. If anybody's played Crash Bandicoot, you'll remember he has these like goofy ass death animations. And my dad thought it was hilarious, so he was like, "This game is awesome. You need to play this like all the time." so obviously I played Crash Bandicoot for a while, and I was spending most of my time playing at home after school, not necessarily with my friend, except on the weekends. But once Crash Bandicoot started to get boring, or if I was stuck, I started trying to give this Final Fantasy game another chance. And it didn't take long, but soon I was really, really, really into it, and I couldn't explain why. Now, when I was a kid, one thing that I can say to my credit, even though I was not exactly the most studious of students, I will say to my credit that I read everything, and that's still something I do to this day. Back of cereal boxes, newspapers, magazines, everything I could get my hands on, I was reading. So when the game threw text in my face, I read every single thing. And what I didn't realize was I was becoming enraptured with the story that was present in the game. Even though the graphics weren't the prettiest sometimes, and even though the combat was slow and very methodical, I was absolutely in love with the story and the characters, and it just absolutely blew me away. Before I even knew it, I had so much emotional investment in this game. I was so crushed when Eris died. I was so touched by the soft side of Barrett, even though he was this big, gruff, rough and tumble kind of guy. He was a soft, caring father who was only fighting for the good of his adopted daughter. It was just such an incredible game, and it really showed me, and to this day I credit it with showing me what a video game can truly be to somebody. Anyway, that'll be it for part 1, guys. Next time we're going to get into what I did after that, because shortly after Final Fantasy VII was when I finally got Pokemon. And we always know what a momentous game that is in my gaming identity. So, anyway, my question for you guys is, what was your first gaming system, and what was the first game that really, really made you think, like, damn, video games got story, video games got heart? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the like button if you did, and I'll see you guys for part 2 next time. Goodbye.